Today we're going to talk about the Nimble hustle. Yes, it's something that I made up, but it really describes how I got into a tech career and how I see so many other people getting into tech careers or leveling up in the one they already have. The Nimble hustle. How to be changing and how to be hustling. That's going to help you, so listen up. Welcome to How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s. It's the podcast where we love to get excited and down to brass tacks, talking about the real things that help you move the needle when you switch from any other career into a high-tech or IT career. And this is where we're going to discuss the real hints, tips, tricks, and the methods and the protocol that help you switch into a real tech career. So welcome. So I'm kind of nervous. I have not done a podcast for about a month, and I'm trying to use notes this time. I hope it helps. I'm not sure if it will. It might distract me. I usually get on a train of thought and just talk about bullet items that are in my head for the morning. This Saturday morning, this morning, I just did a training, and it was self-paced. I didn't have anyone on the call. It was self-paced, and I put it up in the academy, which is Tech Career Accelerator Academy, over on school.com. You can find me there, and you can join that if you want to watch it and follow along in the training. But I'll touch on just a little bit of what I did in that part of the training this morning. So it's called the Nimble hustle, and the term just came to me as I was thinking, how do you hustle and really do a lot of work but not get worn out? And how do you look for jobs in a way that's not going to discourage you too much, but at the same time, you're not getting jobs that you're overqualified for? So that's what I'd like to talk about today. The Nimble hustle. And I want to tell you a story about when I was switching into a high-tech job. I believe that I had a website development job. And in 2008, if you're in your 30s and 40s, you remember this. You were young, but you'll remember 2008 was a global recession. I showed up for work, and I remember watching the stock market tank, and I happened to be creating websites for banks, community banks in particular. And things went very badly. So I remember driving past housing developments where they had been putting up sticks, 2x4s, 2x6s, and they didn't have any flooring in yet or anything. And everything just froze for about a year. Those housing developments stayed in the status they were, and no construction was going on. And that's because nobody could afford to keep building them. And no loans you couldn't get a loan to do the construction. I think that's how it went. But all I knew is every day I showed up to my job, and I wondered when my job would be gone. And it eventually was gone. I think it was gone in 2009. And as a manager, I had leveled up as a manager at that time, and they let me go. They let the 3 managers go first. And I think I was managing whatever, web operations or whatever my boss wanted to call it. But I was out of work, and so I had to figure out how to do life and how to pay for the family again after just 2 years prior getting my first tech job ever in web development. So I was out looking at job sites, and there were a few out there, and some of them like dice.com, monster.com, they were pretty big at the time. LinkedIn was around, but it was super small. And I was looking for jobs, but then I got an email from my wife because I was probably out in the garage upstairs in Iowa, in our house in Iowa, and looking at job boards, and I got the email. And she said, here's this website I found that I really want you to look at. And I looked at the name of it. It was like Smart Jobs USA. And I thought that is a spam site, I'm pretty sure. So I didn't even look at the email. I told her it was a spam site. She says, "Oh, I found this job." And I asked her more questions about it when I saw her that night. And I said, "Well, did you really see that job there?" She's like, "Yeah." So I did look at the job and looked at the posting, and it looked interesting. It looked like something that I might be able to do. And I applied, and I ended up getting the job. I may have some of the details, time and place, the year. I think it was pretty much the same year that I mentioned, but I ended up getting that job. That it was a contract, I think. Um, but regardless, contract or full-time job, my point here is that sometimes you will find an opportunity on smaller job sites that don't seem, I'm doing air quotes, legitimate. And the reason they don't seem legitimate is because they don't have the money to pile into algorithms and communities and all of the things that these huge websites have nowadays, like LinkedIn or Indeed.com. And so they don't appear to be legitimate or appear to be helpful to you as you look for a position. I want to encourage you to go to those websites and look for alternative websites that list jobs, because there may be players in that website that have put their ad up there or listed their job openings, and you will find those much more easily than if you were to try to find jobs on Indeed.com. And there's a very good reason for that, or on especially LinkedIn. There are ways that let's say you just go to LinkedIn.com, you log in, you're going to see some job opportunities right away. Now, those are the jobs that LinkedIn thinks that you would qualify for. And they are often going to be the same jobs that hundreds or thousands of other people will apply to. And that can be discouraging. And so you won't apply, or you'll just do the quick, easy apply. That's, in my opinion, being lazy. Not just, obviously, just hitting the easy apply button. I have other podcast episodes about that. But the lazy part here is, and you don't know you're being lazy, but it's lazy because you're not really searching for the jobs. Now, if you type in the search bar, yeah, you get some better results. But in the end, there is someone in charge, and the company is, in this case, LinkedIn.com. They are trying to show you the ads or the jobs that that they think are most important for you to see. So you're going to get some filtering. You're going to get some outside influence playing into the results, and you really don't want that. What you really want is to be able to find the jobs that a lot of other people are not applying to, and that some of the smaller players in the marketplace are putting out there. And a lot of times a small business doesn't know how to list their job on LinkedIn, or maybe they're not even on LinkedIn.com. That seems crazy, but it's possible. Those are the types of jobs. If you're going to switch into a tech career in older age, it's so vital, and you have bills to pay. You've got to use everything possible, everything that's at your fingertips to try to switch. And that's what I mean by being nimble and having hustle. How many people do you think are really looking for alternate websites other than Glassdoor, Salary.com, LinkedIn, Indeed? How many people do you think are really looking for those, for jobs outside of those main player websites? Yeah, not a lot. If you would guess not a lot, you'd probably be right. So I encourage you to go and look for jobs on these weird, smaller websites and scroll down and Google. Really hard for me to say Google. Scroll down in that Google and look to the fourth, fifth results when you search for fourth or fifth page of results when you search for job sites, job listing sites. There are so many out there, and the reason that the top ones float to the top is because they pay money to be at the top. They're sponsored, but the other ones are just so big and so many people use them, they're just going to naturally float up to the top of the search results. One angle on this, you could use AI to try to find not very popular websites that list jobs. Another angle on this is you could do the crazy thing and find out large companies, small companies, medium-sized companies that are in your local area and contact them directly and find out if they have any openings for any positions. And what I just said right there might sound to you, if you're in your 40s or 50s, it might sound normal. But if you're in your 30s or 20s, what I just said probably sounds like crazy talk. Not using the internet to find things. Sounds like crazy talk. But the truth is, it is going to be very difficult for you to play the same game as everyone else when it comes to looking for your next or your first tech position. So everything that I've said up to this point has to do with being nimble a little bit and doing some hustle. And for a short time, that can work. I encourage you to change your mindset about how you look at the job search. If you found a job that met 70% of your skills, let me say that backward. If you qualified for 70% of the requirements of a position, how about that? That sounds a lot better. That's something you should apply to. And a lot of people, when they look at a job and they look at it and they think, I don't qualify for enough. What they usually will do is just scroll to the next job. But it is a highly paid skill for you. It will turn into a highly paid skill if you can look at a job listing, look at the requirements, and tick off how many of those requirements you can fulfill. And then calculate, is it 7 out of 10? And if you're at 6 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, that's great. And that is a job that you probably should be applying for if you want the job. Now, if you qualify for 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, and you can break this down into percentages or whatever. But if you qualify for, let's say, just 10 out of 10 things, there's a good chance that you could be overqualified for that job. And maybe you need to start looking for a job that's more difficult because it's going to pay more, perhaps. Not all the time, but you need to set your sights a little higher. There are two kinds of people that are missing out on jobs out there. And the first kind of person I notice, and see if you're one of these, and if you fall into one of these categories, you have some adjustments to do. You need some more nimble hustle. All right, so the first category of people I see are people who look at jobs and immediately disqualify themselves without doing a little more research. They scroll down, they see a job, they look at it for 1, 2, 3, scroll to another 1, 2, 3, scroll to another one. And there's really no consideration in that person's mind as to what do I qualify for in this position and what could I learn in the next 6 months to get that position. The only way you can stop doing that, if that's the kind of person you are, is for you to start looking at every single bullet, like I mentioned, every single requirement, writing it down, copy and paste the entire requirements into a spreadsheet. Like my clients use Goal Grabber, I call it, in the Google Drive that they get when they join. And using the Goal Grabber, you can figure out how to map your career from where you are now to achieving a certain position in the future. And so once you start to look at the requirements and evaluate the requirements and assess your own skills, the skills you have now, the skills you could have in the future, the skills you attained for the last 20 years when you've been working, if you're older looking for a job now. Only when you start to evaluate and think about all those things do you really get closer to getting a job. Because if you're the type of person to scroll, disqualify yourself, then you are never going to get into a tech job. There are no perfect jobs for you out there. I just want to say that. And if there's a perfect job, like I mentioned, 10 out of 10 things you can do every single thing on the job requirements list, then you are overqualified and you're just aiming too low. All right. So that leads me into the other kind of person on the other side. So this person is someone who's scrolling past and only looking at the easiest jobs to get and not making a plan at all because you're not looking at the right job titles. You're not challenging your future, so to speak. You're not doing any sort of hustle at all when it comes to, I want to learn something new and get paid a little bit more. So, and if you're not already in a tech career and you're trying to switch into one, you might not be this type of person, but you could be. Usually this is someone who's in a sort of quote unquote techie job right now, and they're trying to level up. And this person is not able to really dream a little bit and think a little bigger. So if that's you, then when you look at positions, let's say right now you're a web developer, you keep looking at web development jobs and you don't really evaluate something a little bigger, such as back end or looking at programming for something else, like a different platform, like a mobile platform, for example. You need to look and expand your horizon a little bit more and think, how can I, just like the other case, how can I plan out the next 90 days so I can get some of the skills in those tougher jobs to get? And really what you need to do for yourself is say, there are jobs out there that I could get if I worked a little harder at something. And that's where the hustle comes into play. Not a job you can get in 5 years. Those jobs will not be there. The jobs will be gone. The jobs will change. Everything will change in 5 years from now, from 2025 in May. So you really have to clamp down on something that's a little bit more challenging than what you have and tack on or tape on or paste on to your resume, as it were, something that's a little more challenging that people need. Now, what would be the nimble hustle ideal type of person? There are no ideal people out there, but what is a good goal for you to hit? I would say it's like this. You are looking at local opportunities because a lot of people are having to go back to the office and people don't want to go back to the office. So if you want to go back to the office and work locally, work on site, that's going to stand out to employers. Not only that, but look for smaller to medium-sized companies because they often aren't going to put their job posting on the internet. And even if they do, they've lost track of all the applicants. And so it's overwhelming to them. Small companies, 10 people, 50 people, So oftentimes they lose track. That's why people get ghosted, is because so many people are applying, they just can't get back to people. So if you would approach the company personally, whether you go there and you follow up and you go there again and talk to someone and ask the question, who would be the person I talk to about this XYZ title or role to fulfill? You're going to stand out. You're going to be someone that the receptionists, if there is a receptionist, will remember. And that is a big deal. Okay? So go local, go small to medium. And what's going to happen is when people get to know you, assuming you're good at presenting yourself, companies may even create a job for you, because companies want to hire people. They don't hire jobs. They don't hire bots. Well, they kind of do now, but they still want people to run the bots. And if you're good enough to be on their team, in general, they might put you in a role that's specific. So be nimble and hustle. If I were to tell you, this is the way you're going to get a job, I can't guarantee that. But I will tell you right now, that's how I've gotten my first tech jobs. And so making an impression and doing all those old school things are going to earn you a lot of bank when it comes to leveling up or switching into a tech position. I would encourage you to look for a small pond as well. When I got into iOS development, the small pond was iOS development. I did not know how to do iOS development, mobile development. And because it was so new, hardly anyone else did as well. Obviously, there were thousands of people who did it, but not like today. And so companies had, they couldn't really pick and choose who they wanted like they are right now. So the small pool, or the small pond, was mobile development. Today, it's being able to use AI inside of other jobs. And so that is a highly sought after thing, because it's hot and it's not going away. Same thing with mobile development. People walking around with phones. Companies knew that's not going away. And so I stood out to people, and I've seen other people in my course, in my academy, stand out in the same way. So I want to encourage you to look for a small pond, and often that tends to be a small pond of emerging technology, and often that can also be paired up with a local job search and paired up with personal touch. Those are crazy. That's like crazy talk anymore these days. But that is the way that you can get hired. And maybe one of those levers could be pulled and will help you in your search. So thank you for listening. And remember, the nimble hustle, being agile in how you look for a position, and being very, very scientific, and hustling when you look at positions you're going to copy and paste into a spreadsheet. You're going to evaluate the qualifications you have versus the requirements that they want, and that will get you very far. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s is the podcast that tries to help you switch into a tech career, no matter what your background is, give you some support and some encouragement along the way. Now, if you're stuck and you need some help, give me an email at info@techlead.com, info@tekleed.com, all spelled wrong. Until next time, my name is Brooks Haynes, and I've been your host today, and I thank you for listening. From the shores of the Vermilion River in southeastern Minnesota, have a good day.